started, the topic for today is one that is near and dear to my heart. This is, even if you do not track a calorie, if you never open up MyFitnessPal, this is how you can have effortless fat loss. I'm not going to say you're going to lose like 40 pounds with the stuff I discussed today, just in and of themselves, but it could definitely make that process a lot easier. So what we're going to be talking about today is going to be the most underrated cheat code for successful fat loss. That is going to be satiety management. It's hard to stick to a game plan if you want to lose fat, if you're hungry all the time, you're miserable, you hate that diet, because a couple things could happen. One, you just never get there. You're miserable all the time, you don't adhere, and then you end up falling off, and then you never actually get the goal accomplished. Second thing that could happen, if you don't have any strategies for satiety management, you're just hungry all the time and you're not too happy, you do accomplish the goal, but it's short-lived. If you have a 12-week diet and you're like, eating clean out of a Tupperware, but you're hungry all the time, and then as soon as that program's over after the 12 weeks, I'm going to go to Cheesecake Factory and I'm going to eat all this stuff, all the things that I couldn't eat, and then I'm going to actually feel full for the first time. And so I'm not going to say that hunger should be zero when doing a fat loss diet. Thank you, Greg. Shout out to you. It was a good weekend. But in terms of, fat loss overall, it's something you want to manage for hunger and satiety management. So we're going to be diving in. I got nine pieces. So 9 things to focus on to improve your satiety management so that you can lose fat without being hungry all the time and be more likely to, 1, sustain that fat loss on the way to your goal, and 2, keep the weight off for the long term. These are things we focus on in the Healthy Flesh prescription. So number 1, with satiety management, generally what we're trying to do here, goal is to maximize satiety per calorie. Satiety just means the opposite of hunger. It's where you feel full and you do not feel a need for hunger. This is probably assumptive, but this is how a lot of, the GLP, medications and drugs out right now, kind of why they're effective. They increase how satiated you feel per calorie, all things else created equal. So if you could eat 4 slices of pizza, let's say you're taking one of these medications, now you feel so full after 2 slices of pizza. That's kind of how it's able to, get you to eat less calories, get into a calorie deficit. That's kind of what the outcome is. So how can we do this if we're not on, Manjaro or any of those things? How can we do this as, routines to make sure we can lose fat, get lean? So the first thing that we can focus on by maximizing satiety per calorie, how we can do that, is going to be focusing on high volume foods. So high volume foods, what would those be? This is going to be the trifecta right here. Melons, your boy loves melons, berries, and vegetables. Wow, sexy, amazing, groundbreaking. Not really, but if a lot of people say like eat more vegetables, or maybe melons and berries are less talked about, but I got love for them. But why are these things awesome? Why are they so effective for fat loss? Because vegetables are such a high in water content. So vegetables, they're so high in water content that people even think that if you eat celery, it costs more calories in digestion, it expends more calories than it actually does the calorie load of the food. Not necessarily true, but overall, when it comes to celery, it's just crunchy water. It's so minimal in calories. You could have pounds of celery and still you only eat 100 or 200 calories. And so imagine if you have all this food that is this big, or you could have one Pop-Tart like that big. You're going to get different outcomes with those things. Because if we look at why do people gain, why are we overall higher in body fat, eating more calories than ever before? It's often these dense forms of calories that are super delicious, hyper palatable. And so we're packing all those calories we could get in this much food into this much food. So we're not getting that stretch response of our stomach. What helps signal satiety and the feeling of fullness? The stretch response, so the stretch of the stomach, does help our bodies to signal, feeling full. So I believe that would be, we got, is ghrelin the hunger hormone or the satiety hormone? It's been a little bit, but I'm going to type that in. Ghrelin is produced by your stomach when it's empty to signal. Okay, so yeah, ghrelin is the hunger hormone. So yeah, we give off ghrelin when we are hungry. So we want to feel satiety. So we don't want as much, ghrelin. So we have these pieces, in our stomach or like in our bodies, ghrelin signaling, hey, I need more food. So to suppress that, to get less of that, stress response of the stomach is going to be helpful. Why are berries so awesome? So berries are awesome because, especially raspberries specifically, they have a lot of fiber per calorie. Fiber, it slows down digestion. It takes its time through the GI. It's good for long-term, GI cancer prevention and stuff. But generally, fiber is more satiating per calorie than, other foods. So getting in more fiber can be helpful in keeping you full, probably because it's slowing down that digestion overall. And then melons, I think that these are the biggest cheat code that are just underrated. Watermelon is delicious. It's fun at parties. If you bring it to a party, people don't look at you sideways. Oh, you brought the watermelon. It's one of the few foods where it's quote unquote healthy or very low in calorie density that you can bring to a party and people are going to give you, a fist pump and be like, thanks for bringing the watermelon. So when I'm dieting, that's like my go-to. I'm going to bring the food that I want to eat. And so if I'm dieting or like in a cutting phase, I'm going to bring watermelon and no one's going to look at me sideways. If I bring the celery and carrot tray, people look at me a little bit sideways like, bro, like what is this? If I'm hosting, I just got bags of carrots and I'm pretty much the only one eating them, but whatever works. But generally melons, cantaloupe, honeydew, high in water content. You can get a ton of volume. A pound of watermelon has like 120 calories and it's a good amount of watermelon. It's delicious. Berries, I would say the big plays right here are going to be probably raspberries, and strawberries. Strawberries are very high in volume per calorie. Raspberries are very high in fiber per gram of carb. And then vegetables, it's kind of hard to mess up vegetables. Nearly all vegetables are going to be pretty darn low in calories per volume. So, you could go cucumber, squash, salads, of course. Cabbage. I said carrots earlier. Carrots kind of have a little bit more calories versus other vegetables, but they're so crunchy and satiating, and they're for me, they're fun to eat. So it's like 35 calories per like 100 grams or so. So like you're still in a good spot, or 85 grams. So you're still in a pretty good spot overall. Like if we're complaining about calorie content in vegetables, like we're majoring in the minors, so we're really missing out. It's kind of like when people are like, "Oh my God, fruits have so much sugar in them." It's like, bro, like you just ate Lucky Charms for breakfast. Like it's not the sugar of an apple that's also got fiber and all this water content and takes time to consume, rather than like that Pop-Tart that was like 3 bites and you're done. So that's a lot of these plates. But high volume. Focusing on high volume foods when dieting, it's going to be helpful. So high volumes per calorie. Number 2 is going to be, generally protein. Just focusing on protein intake. Protein, most satiating of the 3 macronutrients. But why is it more satiating? Is it just, protein is protein? It could be due to the thermic effect of protein. So as you digest it, you do, there's a thermic effect. So that means like you burn calories through the digestion. So that's a piece. But also on the satiety piece is like, generally what we see is protein or like chewier foods tend to be more satiating. Foods that take more time to chew. And this could be, juices versus an apple. Same calories, what keeps you satiated for longer or for more? And that could just be, a volume piece too, solids, etc. So proteins, they tend to be more chewy in general too. So that could be kind of more of the whys. But, it looks like, as far as all macronutrients are considered, protein is that money maker. So we want to maximize and get enough protein in. How much do I recommend? Probably 1 gram per pound goal body weight. And that's like a lean body weight. So let's say like you're 250 pounds. I don't know how much like body fat percent, but let's say you're 250 pounds and like you'd be probably pretty darn lean at like 175. Then I would probably set, protein like, let's say 170, 175 grams per day. But like if you're in a situation of like, let's say you're 300 pounds, you're 40% body fat, like if your goal is to get down to 250, I wouldn't go to 250 grams of protein. So like when I say goal body weight, it's like usually that long-term stretch goal. I would almost even say, or pound lean body mass. So if you're 40% body fat, you're 300 pounds, that's like 180 grams of protein. Much more feasible than if we just generally are giving everyone the 1 gram per pound, because it's very, very unlikely that someone's going to be able to stick to. Let's say you want to lose body fat. Say you're starting at 300 pounds. 300 grams of protein is going to be hard to fit in, especially like relative to the fats and carbs and how many calories you're going to have. So protein, highly satiating per calorie. Number 3, well, actually, let's get into some protein sources. So I'm going to rattle these off. I will write them down too. So we're going to rattle off what are some, with protein sources, what you want to optimize for is low fat and low carb per gram of protein. And also I would minimize, this is going to be one of our later ones. But I'm going to avoid protein shakes here, but protein shakes are going to be better than nothing. So, but you probably want chewed forms. So let's go, chicken breast, super like 0 carb, very low fat. You could even go thighs. They're not too bad. Roast beef, 96% lean ground beef. You can go deli meats typically. So that would be like your turkey breast, chicken breast, roast beef. That's kind of what I put there early. It tends to be pretty lean. So deli meats can be pretty darn lean to get that protein pretty easily. Egg whites, phenomenal. You can get a lot of volume on those as well. 0 fat, 0 carbs. And this one, yeah, I'd say fat-free Greek yogurt, also tremendous. And so you could even have like a tub of fat-free Greek yogurt. I was doing this, even the vanilla flavored one. I think it was like 50 carbs, like 70 grams of protein. So you're getting like 70 grams of protein on it was like 450 calories. So that's a pretty good trade-off. And you get it's a giant tub. It'll keep you busy. Number three is going to be one that I love and personally implement. It's fasting windows. So intermittent fasting is a great tool for fat loss. It's not the reason we lose fat. As we know, the reason we lose fat is from a calorie deficit and sustaining that over time. But when we look at these fasting windows, that's just like a strategy that kind of, on average, has us eating, less kind of calories. So let's say you eat, no one eats 24 hours of a day. But let's say you have no fasting restrictions. You're just eating ad libitum, so as normal. And then all of a sudden, we'll say in this case, you eat 2,000 calories per day. And then you implement a fasting window. You're like, I'm not going to eat until 12 p.m., and I'm only going to eat, 12 p.m. into 8 p.m. Okay, so you may be cutting out a meal. And that meal could be 400, 500 calories. And then everything else, if kept equal, and you accept that hunger early in the morning, you're like, oh, I'm so hungry, but I'm fasting. I'm committed to this intermittent fast. Now, all things else created equal, you go from eating 2,000 calories per day. Now you're eating, let's say, 1,600 or 1,500. So you've reduced your calories. And that's why a lot of people, when they implement a fasting protocol, they end up losing weight because it's just some form of restriction. And, I love to say that fat loss is easy. You don't have to change a thing. It's so, sustainable. But at the end of the day, if nothing changes, nothing changes. You need some form of restriction or reduction that's going to lead you to consume less calories than you burn. And it has to, if nothing changes, again, nothing changes. So if you just eat the same calories, nothing's going to happen. But when you have a fasting protocol, so you're eating one less meal per day, or, you start tracking your calories, and then you objectively can see I'm eating less calories. The outcome has to be that. That's the change that you're looking to get to the outcome to. So especially in this topic for today, if you just eat more of these foods on this list that are more satiety per calorie, if your satiety needs to be at 100% for you to, feel full during the day, if that's to get to 100%, how do we fill up this bar while the calorie bar is kept as low as possible? So if calories are kept down here, but we fill up this satiety bar rather than just eat Pop-Tarts all day. So we may actually eat this many calories, but we just hit that 100% of satiety. So that's what we're kind of playing this game with. How do we fill the satiety cap while keeping calories kind of moderate? But back onto the topic, fasting windows. I think that these are tremendous. So personally, I'm going to tell you how I use them, but how they are generally used. So generally, the way that people will use these is fast until 12 p.m. and then fast until 12 p.m. and then go 12 to 8 p.m. So you're pretty much, instead of waking up having breakfast at like 8 a.m., maybe a snack, you're pretty much just like cutting out that first meal or snack. And then so typically people will eat a little bit less calories, but again, it's not guaranteed. So fasting can be useful, but then sometimes you just have bigger meals later through that day and you're eating the same calories. So it's not foolproof. This is the way that I like to personally use this. I'm dieting right now, but I don't have a set rule, but for me, I eat, so meals at, let's say 4:30 a.m. Then I have another meal after I get back from the gym around 7 a.m. And then my fast is going to be around 7 a.m. to and it varies, but it could be 11 a.m. It could even be like as late as like 2 p.m. It also depends how busy I am, et cetera, et cetera. Or if I go for a run, I'm probably going to eat after that run. So that's what it looks like for me, and that's what works. And then it's going to be meals at, like, let's say I go for like 12 p.m. Then I'll probably have something small at 3 p.m. and then probably or I may just finish out at like, 4 p.m. and maybe a snack, a little snacky, like, I don't know, 5, 6 right before bed. So that's kind of like, this protocol is useful because it is this period. So for me, I'm going to be hungry during this fasting period, but I'm like, okay, psychologically, I'm going to be like, it's okay. I've committed to fasting. It's okay to be hungry. A lot of people, when they feel hunger during a deficit or something, or just at any normal day, they're like, oh, I got to eat. I'm hungry. Like, I have to eat. This is bad. Hunger is not bad. Just like feeling sad is not bad. We have to feel sad so we can feel happy. We have to feel hunger so we can feel full. And we just need to balance these things. Oftentimes, when you give these things these definitions of being bad, that's where we can kind of get into a rough spot. So body composition wise, when it comes to, hunger, you should feel hunger between meals. That's showing you that, okay, we're in a short-term calorie deficit, because you will feel full after a meal. You'll feel a time of no hunger. So play the extremes. If you go to the buffet and you eat a ton of food and you are so stuffed to where you're about to vomit, you're super satiated. So we know the extreme feeling of fullness. We feel that extreme feeling of hunger would be, if you fast for like 12 hours or something, and then you may feel, the counter equivalent, but like no one's really doing that. But overall, my point here is hunger is not bad. And I would is this one of it? Yeah, this is actually another point, but it's going to be a while down. But expect hunger at some point, and it's okay. So what fasting does is it makes it psychologically okay to be hungry, and that's because I'm fasting. Because in a 24-hour period, we have short-term deficits, we have short-term surpluses after meals. And what you're doing when you're in a fasting window is you're just extending a short-term deficit, that feeling of hunger, and you're making it okay because, okay, I'm fasting, normal. And then over that's going to bias you or put you in a better position for a net deficit on a 24-hour period. So fasting windows can be implemented as you see fit. I do mine in the middle of eating. And then, otherwise you could just do it. You can bookend your days. Some people will just eat 8 a.m. to like 2 p.m. Some people will do the 12 p.m. to 8. It's whatever you want, but time restricted feeding, fasting can be useful. Also remember, I just always say this because of as like funsies, is what does fasting mean? Fasting equals, it's a fancy way of saying just don't eat. We already are fasting between meals. You're probably fasting right now unless you're eating as we speak, but you're fasting between bites. So we're all fasting. So we don't have to make it this big deal. Kind of like that worked for me too with like running. If you make it a big deal of like, oh, I got to go running. But if you just say like, I'm going to go out for a walk, but just do it a little faster and get expedited steps, it's barely running. It's not daunting anymore. Now, number 4, caffeine. I'm not going to say be hyper dependent on this, but this is just something that exists and it does what it does. And if you ever see like fat burners, they're a waste of money. Just generally, they're typically going to be over marketed, overpriced. But generally, if they have a stimulant in them, like caffeine in it, it's going to be appetite suppressant. So stimulants tend to be appetite suppressants, just like being mentally stimulated by a busy workload or being busy for the day, we forget to eat. So, but from just like a supplement protocol, like caffeine, yes, it's gonna decrease your hunger. And that's where like fat burners, like it's not going to incinerate fat off your body, but like if there's caffeine in it, it will kind of battle those hunger pains and kind of have less hunger for you, less likely to consume, probably going to be in a calorie deficit. So caffeine generally, not going to say go and have a 0.5 gram plus of caffeine per day, but a little bit of coffee, even warm fluids, that works for me from like a satiety management point, but like coffee can be fine. Anything's really fine, but like with anything, don't overdo it. Like diet soda, I got no problems with, but if you have like, 6 gallons of diet soda every day, I can't say that that's probably going to be the best idea. So almost anything can be overdone. So caffeine in moderation, it is an appetite suppressant, but I'm not going to say like caffeine your way to losing 10 pounds. Probably not. 5, high fiber foods. So as we mentioned earlier, fiber tends to be highly satiating. So if we get more fiber in at the same amount of calories, probably going to feel more satiated. So if you just, all things equal, you just eat more fiber, you're more satiated through the day, you'll probably eat less calories than on average. So what are foods that are going to be useful here? 647 bread or like keto breads. They're marketed as keto breads. They tend to just be high fiber breads. I love them. I'm probably after this going to heat up some steak and then just like throw that. Like I literally just cut into slivers and I put it on like pieces of 647 bread. I'm a simple guy. Like I just have some protein. I throw out like 647 bread and then it's, that's it. Pretty much Gordon Ramsay overall. But high fiber foods, we talked about raspberries. Those are phenomenal here as well for getting this up. Raspberries. And then other like high fiber foods. I think it's a byproduct of just getting in more, veggies overall. Some fruits can be better than others in terms of like, fiber per calorie. There's some products out there that'll be, better in here as well. Some protein bars too will have higher fiber counts. Just be cognizant, high fiber. So more fiber is going to be more satiating, but also there's some trade-offs. Nothing's perfect. So fiber, wouldn't recommend it before that big squat workout or that long 5-mile run. You can get into some problems because it's going to scrape your GI and it's going to get things on its way out. So be careful there. If you combine number 4 and number 5 and some high rep deadlifts, you're going to have a bad time. Caffeine, high fiber, and then, something. So like probably recommend have your high fiber foods or the majority of your fiber after your training. And then I think this is Alan Aragon's recommendation, but 15 grams per 1,000 calories intake is a good kind of benchmark to shoot for fiber, for the satiety benefits, but also the health benefits, healthy heart, healthy colon, all those great things. Number 6, and this is one that I alluded to, chew your protein versus drink it. So this is going to be Jose Antonio. Shout out to Dr. Jose Antonio. I always reference this. But when it comes to chewing your protein versus drinking it, you get so much more satiety per calorie by chewing your protein sources than drinking shakes. And why am I so strong in this belief? Because Dr. Jose Antonio does high protein studies. I think he's University of South Florida. I'm not positive what university, but if you type up like high protein diets or Jose Antonio, and he's going to pop up a lot. But like he'll have his participants eat like 2 to 4 grams per kilo of protein. If I weigh 100 kilos, I'm 220 right now. If I eat 4 grams per kilo or 3 grams per kilo, that's going to be 300 to 400 grams of protein per day. And he'll have participants do this for, months on end. And what happens, the biggest limiting factor of these studies is that people drop out because they are too satiated. They were too satiated from that amount of protein. They could not consume all that protein. They struggled to do it. So what they ended up doing is they got a supplement sponsor. Shout out to Dymatize. And they were sponsoring them with whey protein. And so instead of chewing all this chicken breast, having to prep it, where the participants were feeling just too satiated when they were just chewing and consuming this much protein, what they did instead is they started just having more shakes. So knocking back 3 scoops of protein or something, 75 grams, do that twice. And then you can probably get the other remainder from food. And they found out they were actually able to hit the protein intake without feeling overly satiated. So that's like a research thing. But what can we take from that story that can be useful for us who want to lose fat? Probably not be eating 300 grams of protein. And that is chew your protein. More often than not, chew your protein from a satiety standpoint. Do I have anything wrong with protein powder? Absolutely not. Also, on that, ad read, PE Science this week just redropped their white chocolate macadamia cookie. You can use my code Hejnasty to save, I believe, 10%. But yeah, I love protein powder. I got nothing wrong with it. But when we're talking from a satiety standpoint, I'd be out of integrity to say that a protein shake and a lean steak or chicken breast are completely equivalent from a satiety standpoint. I would be wrong. And so that's why I would bias chewing your protein when in a calorie deficit, trying to sustain a calorie deficit. I would bias chewing your protein. Also, this is something that, I'm dieting right now and something that I'm seeing. So I just told you guys I'm going to have some steak later. So I got a smoker. I turned 30 and then, I already have been doing this, but like I've been smoking meats. I do brisket. I'll smoke steak. I picked up running. So like, I just got to get some jorts and I got to start a family. And then I'm fully, I'm going dad mode. I'm excited about it. But chew your protein versus drinking. Something that I'm learning recently is that I've been having more steaks versus I do love my Ninja Creamies. But like I had, 75 grams of protein from steaks and I was good for like 4 hours. I expected to eat some more food later on. And what ended up happening is I was too satiated. I had like no wanting to eat. And I was like, I know I got a couple hundred calories. I would love to have some like popcorn or something, but I was just like, dude, you're good. Like I have no wanting for food. And so that was interesting to me. So if you're doing steaks, chicken, etc., versus, even though Ninja Creamies, amazing. It's just like Ninja Creamy is like it's like an ice cream maker and you can put a lot of protein in it. And so that being said, that was something interesting to me, just like getting a lot of protein in through steaks. I'm noticing my daily satiety is way up. So chew your protein versus drink it. You'll get more satiety out of it. Also, Chris is in the house. Love to see it. What's going on, Chris? All right. Christopher is in here. And then I think we also saw Tyler's up in here. Good to see you guys. Number 7, backload calories. Everybody can do their own thing. You do whatever you want. I don't care. What works for me is backloading calories. What does this mean? This just pretty much means saving calories for later. And the way that I'll talk about this is, can you use a bigger font size? Yeah, let me do that for you. Thank you for the feedback. Appreciate it. Let me see what we got. Ooh, we got options. Boom. That's huge. All right. So is that better? give me a thumbs up in the chat if that's better. But yeah, now I'm going to run out of space. But 7, backload calories, saving calories for later. So I'm going to nerf this once. We can't go, can't go full screen on Instagram. Yeah, that's kind of how it is. So definitely you're going to want to watch these from YouTube if you can. So I'm also live on YouTube right now. Backload calories. So saving those calories for later. So this is something that I always do. And I mentioned earlier, this is my exact kind of strategy for getting lean. Like when I was doing my contest prep, this was the exact thing I would do when it got as ugly as possible, 1,600 calorie days, etc. So I would have this is what I would do. So let's bear with me. So my meal at 4:30 is going to be like 30 grams of Roast Krispies and it's going to be 2 scoops of protein. So pretty low in carbs, very low in carbs, is like 25 grams of carbs, and then 50 grams of protein. Meal number 2 is probably going to be about the same thing. So I'm going to be at 7 a.m. I'm 100 grams of protein deep and probably like 50 grams of carbs deep. And then I would hit this fasting window. If I carry this all the way until 2 p.m., let's say I'm dieting on like 2,000 calories. Let's say I'm deep in the deficit. So these 2 meals together are like 700 calories or less. Let's say it's 700 calories. So at this point, I have 1,300 calories to play with for like two, maybe 3 meals, or 2 meals and like a snack. So that's, for me, it's that light at the end of the tunnel that's worth feeling that suck, feeling that, that short-term hunger that you got to feel at some point. I get that out of the way, and then I'm like, okay, it's 12 p.m. or it's 2 p.m. Now I got all these calories to play with. I'm like Willy Wonka with all these like carbs that I can be eating. And so it's just, for me, it's something to look forward to. And so oftentimes when I was in my my contest prep, when I would break that fast, I would have like 2 Ninja Creamies and I would be so happy. And so backloading calories has worked well for me. I remember I started coaching my sister a long time ago. She was a college athlete, crushed it, and then she finished up college sports. She ended up gaining some weight. And then she always made fun of me for tracking my macros, like, oh, can you fit this in, et cetera, et cetera. And then one day she was like, Kevin, what's this all about? I see that you've been having success. You've been doing this. And I gave her a certain amount of calories to hit. I think it was like 1,600 calories or something. And then so she on her first day tracking, she made this mistake. She tracked the food after she ate the food. So I think it was like a weekend breakfast or something, and she tracked it afterwards. She was like, Kevin, what do you do when you eat pretty much all your calories at like 8 a.m.? I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, breakfast was like 1,400 calories. I'm like, what did you have? She's like, some eggs, some French toast, and some other stuff. And I'm like, well, if we want to have 24-hour success and be in a calorie deficit, then like you're going to stretch those 200 calories out, and like you would just hit your targets by the end of the day. And that's like, if we were machines, that was what we would do for success. And so I think she ended up doing that. And then she kind of learned. Learning is changing your actions. So then the later on, she would just like minimize those meals, because I think that she struggled to stretch 200 calories after that meal for bedtime. Let's say it's 9 p.m. Like you got to stretch those for 12 hours. So that was more challenging. So when you front load those calories, you may be in a more difficult time because you already had that like, oh boy, it's time to eat. You already had that. So that's why I think backloading is going to be better, because you do the hard work of feeling the deficit, feeling the discomfort, and then it's time to eat. It's kind of like, okay, hard work, now we celebrate. Rather than celebrate, then the hard work comes. So I think just in my mind, that's always been more useful for me. Number 8 is sleep. Sleep's a funny one. I'll tell you why. A lot of people are like, oh, if you're lacking sleep, like you're going to gain weight. Why though? And people are like, oh, because you're going to be hungrier, because your cravings go up. But like, let's just be very objective here. So let's say you sleep. I'm going to do this. So let's say you sleep 4 hours per night, or you sleep 8 hours per night. Very simple stuff. So that means that you're awake 20 hours a day. In this one, you're going to be awake 16 hours per day. Do you think that if you had to stretch your last meal for 4 hours longer, that you wouldn't eat another meal, that you wouldn't be hungrier? Do you not think that you would just be being awake 4 hours longer, that you wouldn't have another meal because you're going to feel hungry? So you'll probably have, let's say, 5 meals. And in this case, you'll probably, all things else considered, you'll probably have 5 meals. And so that could be, that is a 25% increase in calories, going from 4 to 5 meals. So just from that standpoint alone, be whatever magic that I believe about sleep, I'm a sleep proponent. It's going to help your recovery, your injuries, your ability to gain strength, all those cool things. However, that being all the magic that is there, but just if we look at objective, just calorie balance, this is the situation we end in if we are lacking in sleep. You're just going to be awake for a longer period of time and more likely to feel that hunger. So it's getting you from both ends, the sleep, if you're lacking sleep. Because on one end, you're going to be awake longer, eating more calories. And then 2, you have better body composition benefits when you are getting sufficient sleep. So it's kind of getting you, it's burning the candle from both sides. Number 9, my favorite one is expect it. Expect it. Expect hunger. Because nobody is going to lose and change their physique, losing, let's say, 30 pounds. You are not going to do that with no hunger. This is all about hunger management, satiety management. If you do every single thing here perfectly, but you want to get sub 10% body fat, you're still going to feel hunger. You'll feel a little bit less, maybe a little bit more sustainable, but like you're still going to have to feel pain. Just like you're not going to get super strong in the gym without feeling discomfort, having to lift heavy weights, because big, scary muscles lift big, scary weights. And so expect it when it comes to your goals. Expect stuff to suck. If you want to be, outlier of being fit and healthy and lean, you're going to have to feel some pain along the way, some discomfort along the way. And by me sharing that with you, like, I just don't want you to be like, avoid surprises. I don't want you to be surprised by, how difficult it ends up being or uncomfortable or like challenging it is. Just like, me, I want to run a marathon, and like, nobody's telling me like, oh, it's going to be easy. It's going to be a cakewalk. They're like, no, this shit sucks. Like, you're going to have to do like 2-hour runs in training, and then you got to run for like 4 hours. Like, it's pretty much elongating pain. And so same thing with a deficit, with a fat loss diet. Expect hunger along the way, but use these strategies to minimize and manage it. But also, if you only take one from here, expect number 9. Just use number 9. Expect there to be hunger. Expect you to not get there to the destination without some discomfort. And you're going to have a much better journey along the way because you're not going to feel surprised by the hard work. I'd rather you think like, this is going to be tough losing these 15 pounds. I'm going to have to really like put my best effort in. And then it's like, oh, it's easier than I thought. Rather than get into it and be like, oh, this really sucks. This is way more challenging than I thought. So that being said, I hope this is helpful for you. So this is the most underrated cheat code for fat loss, satiety management, maximizing the amount of satiety per calorie. And this, if you don't even track a macro, you don't track anything on MyFitnessPal, you could just implement these 8 or 9 things and probably start seeing your first 5 pounds come off. And then, of course, if you want to dial in, you join the Healthy Flesh Prescription Program, and you can apply for that with the link in my bio and links on all my social medias.